we kick off this evening with a look at the cinema.
I'm not a complicated man. I like cinema.
It's beautiful, beautiful cinema.
Cinema history come to life.
I found my solace in the small cinema I went to every Thursday night.
I'm a professor of cinema.
I go to the cinema for the stories.
There was no competition between the cinema and seminar.
I mean, it's not within the realm of conventional cinema.
And now,
here's Pace and Johnson
with a cinema review.
It is Wednesday, July 10th, 2024, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Cinemaster's Reviews. I'm your host, Payson the Cinemaster Johnson. A bit of a chaotic week this week, not shooting at a normal time. To give a little bit of a background, I was sick on Monday. Yesterday, I had to get 2 of my tires replaced. Finally happy I can finally shoot today. Didn't have the greatest day today either. The AC went off in my apartment for like a routine check and stuff. So it's a little hot in here, but I was like, you know what? I can't keep putting off this show for too long because I got some exciting movies I want to talk about this week. I'm talking about Maxxxine, the third film in the Extraordinary trilogy, as Ty West is calling it, as well as Yorgos Lanthimos' new film, Kinds of Kindness. I say we jump right in, and we are going to be talking about first Maxxxine, directed by Ty West. Maxxxine is set 6 years after the first film in this franchise. X, it's obviously set many decades after the last film, Pearl. And in Maxxxine, we are following the character we were introduced to in X, Maxine Minks, a former adult star, as she is now transitioning towards a career in Hollywood. She has aspirations of being a star. She has aspirations of being famous. And once you know it, she's going to do everything she can to do that. Throughout the movie, though, it seems like not only does she have a bit of trauma from everything that happened 6 years ago on that farm with all of the people around her dying, but it seems like there are some killers in Hollywood that are trying to track down Maxxxine and might know what she did to defend herself that night in Texas in order to get away from these serial killers. I have been super excited for this movie ever since it was announced that X was going to be a trilogy. To give a little bit of background, I really, really loved X. I think it's one of the better horror movies of this decade. I love how grimy it feels. I love how it feels like a really cool, like gritty 70s film. I think all the side characters have a lot of personality. Great cast with Kid Cudi, with Jenna Ortega, with Brittany Snow, and of course that excellent performance at the center from Mia Goth playing both Maxxxine and Pearl. I also love the prequel Pearl. While I prefer X, Pearl is definitely, I think, Mia Goth's best performance in this whole trilogy. I love how even though her character is more understated than Maxxxine is, she's still like very like poppy and very bubbly. And then as the movie goes on, you see how insane this person gets. I really, really love Pearl. Like specifically like the direction and how everything looks in Pearl. I think you really saw how good Ty West can make his movies look. So going to this film, knowing that it was going to be set in 1980s Hollywood, I was super excited because I really wanted to see where it was going to go. And while I did end up enjoying this movie, I am a little disappointed to say I do think this is the weakest of the 3 films. I was really trying to find the main crux for why I think this was the weakest of the 3. And I think the major thing I came down to was oftentimes when it comes to sequels, they try to take the things that work from the original film, the same concepts, and tell a similar story, but make it bigger, make it feel bigger, like tackle bigger ideas, have the stakes feel a lot more important. And some movies do that really well. I think the poster child of that is probably Terminator 2. If you really look at the plot aspects of Terminator 2, it's essentially the same as the first Terminator. It's just on a much bigger scale this time. I think it works really, really well there. I think this is a great example of bigger not always being better. Watching this film, I really was missing the more intimate settings of X and Pearl, the more the smaller cast specifically of X when it comes to this horror movie. You're watching these characters get knocked off. it really made me appreciate that and yearn for that personally. And while I did like the style of this movie, obviously this movie set in 1980s Hollywood, you have all the big neon colors. You during the nighttime scenes, it feels very grimy. And while I enjoy that, it doesn't feel as tense or as thrilling. And I think that feeling from Ty West that he created in those first two movies were a little lacking when it came to Maxxine. Mia Goth is an actress I discovered back in 2017 when I first saw when I saw Cure for Wellness. And when I saw her in that movie, I was like, holy crud, this woman is born to play just like insane characters that are just like on their wits' end. And it seems like Ty West, like this trilogy was made to show off how great of an actress Mia Goth can be. She didn't write X, but she wrote both Pearl and Maxxine. And I think it was a really smart idea for Ty West to take Mia Goth in this really to put her on more of a creative role in these movies. And she's still good here. When we're introduced to Maxxine, she's a lot quieter than she was in X. Obviously, in X, she's coming in to Hollywood through like this really wide-eyed angle, like she has like these big dreams of becoming like the best porn star in the world. And then as this movie goes on, she's a little quieter at points. Like you can definitely tell she's keeping a lot of stuff in. So while that doesn't maybe lead to the most entertaining performance, and while this maybe makes this version of Maxxine not as fun to watch as the original Maxxine, I do want to say that Mia Goth is still just as talented as she was in those first two films, and I do think it takes a lot of energy from an actor that we've seen go this loud and this boisterous, and to just finally reel it back a little, which Mia Goth is reeled back throughout the majority of the film. Now, towards the end of the movie, she definitely starts to become more of her own again. She gets into that more high energy feeling that she had in X and Pearl. But throughout the majority of this movie, Mia Goth and the character of Maxxine is a little more subdued. And while I do think that is a really great testament to Mia Goth's skills as an actor, as a lover of what she gave us in those first two films, it did make me a little sad that we didn't get those insane moments that we had in those first two films. Yeah, like I said, I really, really love the 80s aesthetic to this movie. I think this movie is a great soundtrack, which is always like that secret must that we always feel whenever we have a movie set in the 80s. Really cool looks. Maxxine's best friend works at a video store. He has a lot of really cool knowledge about movies and all this stuff. I'm just so addicted to all these elements. So it's always so I always feel like a sucker when movies are set in this, because it almost feels like it's pandering to me. But I can't lie and say that I don't enjoy it. Like I said, this movie does have a lot of murder mystery elements. The main crux of this film is someone from Maxxine's past is going around Hollywood and killing different actresses to get closer to Maxxine and trying to frame her as the person that's killing people. This killer, we don't know who he is until the end of the film, who he or she is towards the end of the film, but we do know that he hires Kevin Bacon, who plays a detective John Labatt, to track Maxxine down. Of all the side characters in this movie, Kevin Bacon is so good. You can tell he is having the time of his life playing this 80s themed detective who like just like cigar smoking, super schlubby, kind of feels like Elliot Gould in The Long Goodbye if he was just a lot sleazier. And I just think Kevin Bacon just fit right at home in this film. Not every single side, like, while this movie has a lot of great supporting performances, not everyone is given their moment to shine, but Kevin Bacon in particular is given his major moment to shine. The other person who I really, really loved in this movie was Elizabeth Debicki as Elizabeth Bender, who is directing the movie that Maxxine wants to audition for. Elizabeth Debicki is becoming an actress that whenever I see her pop up in movies, I always love the energy she gives, because like she's always a little subdued, but in just like complete stoic badass mode. Like whenever she sees Maxxine, she's like, okay, I know what you're about. I know you're faking all of this stuff. That you're trying to act super cool. I know you're hiding something, and Elizabeth Debicki just does a phenomenal job at portraying that. So I think she was really great. There are two cops that are trying to figure out if Maxxine is responsible for the killings that begin to happen. They're played by Bobby Cannavale and Michelle Monaghan. They're fine, nothing incredible. And I want to look up the person that plays Maxine's best friend in this movie. I didn't write his name down, but I thought he was great. He's the one that owns the video store. Make sure I get his name because I don't want to mess this. Moses Sumney as Leon. They have a really fun relationship. It's set up very early on that this relationship is platonic, but I love it when movies are able to portray really great female and male friendships. And I think this was just a really like sweet relationship. And I want to see if Moses Sumner goes on to do anything else because I think he's a really, really talented actor. Going into more stuff that I didn't really like, I don't want to get into spoilers, but with the mystery element, while I enjoyed it throughout the majority of the film, I think the third act is really kind of disappointing, and it really makes you wonder, this is what we've been leading up to. Did we have to lead up to something big like this? Because while X and Pearl are in the same universe, and obviously Maxxine is in the same universe, they weren't connected to a point where like you felt like they're leading up to like a bigger story. And without spoiling anything, when you learn who was really the one who was doing these killings, it's someone from Maxine's past. And I just ended up rolling my eyes. Like, is this really what Ty West was trying to say? Like, what is he trying to say? Was he trying to pull this gotcha on the audience? And it ends in this big, like, climactic showdown with all these characters. And you just end up becoming unsatisfied because, like, you just remember when this franchise was like, it was just so much more effective when it was this intimate horror. When it was this intimate horror story where you're seeing these two characters just go and kill these people that they feel like they are better than. And while I can kind of see the themes of this one are a little similar to that, it just didn't come off nearly as well, and I was a little disappointed. I honestly, while watching the third act of this movie and seeing where Ty West ends it, I felt like he was just trying to shove too much into the ending of this movie to make a thrilling climax when I just didn't think we need it. Like, without spoiling anything, the movie kind of has two endings. One is one where the character imagines what's happening, and then the other is what actually happens. And they're really not that different, and you really wonder, why did we have to see both of them? Like, it's not a Parasite situation where we see one character imagine what's happening and then what actually happens, and they're two completely polar opposite stuff. Like, that I think is really effective. There's really not a difference. So I just was sort of scratching my head walking out of theater, like, why did we have to end it with two scenarios like that? And that was my main issue while watching this movie. Was I felt like Ty West sort of was trying to move away with what made X and Pearl effective. And I don't want to knock a filmmaker for trying to do something different, but I got to be honest, if it's not effective, it's not as effective. And I just didn't think the bigger scale of the story was as effective as X or Pearl. If I were to rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, which is how we do it here at Cinemaster's Reviews, 0 being awful, 10 being absolutely incredible. I still liked the movie. I still think it's definitely not a bad movie, but it's easily my least favorite of the three. I think I'm going to give it a 6 videotapes out of 10. I do give it a passing grade. If you liked those first two films, I do think it is worth going to see this movie in theaters to close out the story. If you didn't like those original movies, I don't see this one turning you around, because I just don't think this one has as much going for it as X or Pearl does. But yeah, like, while all the elements are still here that made X and Pearl so much fun, I think Ty West's like need to go bigger on the story did kind of affect the quality and just sort of affected the story, where I was just like, man, I miss that gritty feeling of X that just made me fall in love with Ty West's direction. This is not a knock on Ty West. Like, I'm still super excited to see what he does next as a director. But yeah, I was a tad disappointed with how this one turned out. Still decent though. If you're a fan of horror movies, I do think you will find some enjoyment out of this film. There is one absolutely incredible kill in this movie. Not a ton of them, but there is one that I will remember for years to go on. going forward. But yeah, I say we jump right into the second review of the night. That being Kinds of Kindness. This is the newest film from Yorgos Lanthimos. It's actually an anthology movie from Yorgos. Yorgos is someone, he obviously directed Poor Things from last year, won, I believe, 4 Oscars, specifically Best Lead Actress for Emma Stone. He also directed The Favorite, Killing of a Sacred Deer, The Lobster, Dogtooth. Yorgos is a really, really weird art house director that has somehow been embraced by mainstream audiences, and I am all here for it. Like, Yorgos, after I saw Poor Things, I was starting to have the belief that this guy, with the exception of maybe Paul Thomas Anderson, he is maybe probably the director that gets my weird sensibilities the most and knows what I want to see on a higher budget scale more than any director. And the fact that he's able to just sneak these like semi-original stories and still keep these extremely weird themes and weird subtexts in them, I think is fascinating. And I'm just so happy we have a director like Yorgos working today. And yeah, he directed 6 months after directing Poor Things. It's crazy that this came out this soon, even though if in case you didn't know, Poor Things was delayed for about a year. I believe it was supposed to come out in 2022. It came out in 2023. So technically he had a year and a half to make this, but I digress. It's still pretty impressive. Yeah, he 6 months later, he has come out with a near 3-hour anthology movie with 3 different stories in this film, each segment taking up around 45 minutes. And man, Yorgos is once again proving, if you think this guy is like calling down on his weird sensibilities, you are dead wrong. With this being an anthology movie, I think it does fall into the trap that a lot of anthology movies fall into, where I don't think every segment has the same quality. I think there are definitely ones, I think there are definitely ones that are better and definitely ones that are worse. And that is always, to me, that's always the most annoying part when you have movies like this that are telling different stories, is I always end up looking at the best story and thinking, man, I would have loved it if we just would have had a full movie based on that. But I can't deny that I still did like the majority of these segments, and I really, really loved one of them, specifically the first segment. To explain it, we open up on a man played by Jesse Plemons, whose boss is played by Willem Dafoe, and Willem Dafoe is essentially telling Jesse Plemons, "Hey, look, this is how you have to go throughout your entire day. Every single day, you have to do this. You have to do this. You have to eat this meal. You have to go to bed at this time. You can have sex with your wife on these specific days. Oh, and by the way, there's a car that is going to drive down on this day, and I want you to try to crash it into it every single day. And every time they get out of the hospital, I want you to crash into it harder." And we see Jesse Plemons sort of tackle with, am I being controlled by Willem Dafoe through this weird like psychology. That is the weird. These are the weird concepts that all of these segments are trying to deal with. Every single segment deals with control in some different way. The second segment, once again, Jesse Plemons is the main character, and his wife, Emma Stone, just got out of the hospital, and she is like not the same person that she was. Like, clearly something is off in her brain, and Jesse Plemons is trying to figure out what's going wrong. And in the third segment, Emma Stone is essentially the main character. She is trying to be a member of a cult. She's trying to live her lifestyle to the perfect way to fit in with all these rules. And you see the struggles that she is having with keeping this sort of fake mentality and fake persona up for the cult leaders played by Willem Dafoe and Hong Chow. As you might have noticed, I am mentioning the same names in every single segment. This movie has around like 6 or 7 actors that it reuses throughout all 3 segments, and you get to see them play different characters throughout the segments. I think all the actors get a chance to shine. Emma Stone, this is her 3rd time working with Yorgos Lanthimos. She worked with him on The Favorite. She worked with him on Poor Things, won an Oscar. And once again, she's absolutely excellent in all 3 segments. The 3rd segment in this one is the one where she gets to shine the most, but she's really good in all of them. Willem Dafoe is always like, is like the perfect weirdo in Hollywood, and I love that he was kind of like the villain of the first segment. Margaret Qualley and Hong Chow are in this. I think Hong Chow in particular gets a really great way of actually getting to play twin characters in the third segment. But the highlight of this film is Jesse Plemons. There is a comparison that people have been saying that Jesse Plemons is this generation's Philip Seymour Hoffman. I'm still not sure I would go that far, but he is proving to be one of the best actors working today, and he is absolutely the standout of this film. Like, I think the reason why the first segment was my favorite is because he is so good at playing this character that is like quietly going through a breakdown and just does not know what to do. Like, you just see it in his eyes throughout the whole film of just how broken and just trying to keep everything together. And Plemons is just perfect at playing this character. And I think he was really, really effective and made that first segment so much fun, where I just, watching this 45-minute segment, I was just like, could they have stretched this out to like an hour and a half and made it just its own movie? And I know that's not the best way to make movies, and I know that Yorgos probably made the best idea. But that first segment, like, while I really like the third segment, and I think the second segment is okay, I think the first segment is on another level, and you are introduced to the company of RMF, which is constant throughout the entire trilogy of segments. And for me, that was my main thing. Just walking out of this movie, I was like, man, I liked the other two segments, but that first segment was just so good. I wish we were just a little bit more focused on that one. While this is definitely not my favorite film from Yorgos Lanthimos, of all the films I've seen, I put it towards the end. Like, this is nowhere as good as The Favorite, not as good as Poor Things, not as good as Killing of a Sacred Deer. I think with this coming so quickly after Poor Things, and knowing that Yorgos Lanthimos' next film is about to go into production and he's already planning that one, I think with him turning into such a prolific director, I'm a little bit more okay that, like, hey, you know, maybe these were just 3 ideas that Yorgos had that he didn't think really had enough juice to fill up an entire movie, and he just puts them all in one film, which totals a feature film, and just put it out to the audience. Honestly, we don't have a lot of directors doing that. Like, the closest thing I can think of was Wes Anderson last year doing The Wonderful World of Henry Sugar and just making 4 different short films and releasing them on Netflix. It is kind of fun to see a director doing that. And while you see a lot of directors nowadays just go to TV in order to do that, I do like how they're like, no, I just have short films I'm going to make, and I'll just put them out. So I do applaud Yorgos for doing that, while this isn't as good as some of his other movies. If I were to rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, I did really, really like it, and I'm going to go an 8 out of 10 for Kinds of Kindness. Again, Yorgos is just one of those guys that I just seem to vibe with as a movie lover, as someone that loves really cool original ideas. And watching this movie, I was just like, man, Yorgos is not getting any less weird, and I love that for him. All the actors turn in phenomenal performances. Once again, Emma Stone is going to be working with him on his next movie, and I'm so happy that that partnership is continuing, because it is turning out to be one of the best director-actor partnerships today, and I'm all here for it. If you have the time, please go see this in theaters if you are a fan of Yorgos' work. Or even if you aren't, go see this. Just kind of get like a taste for what he is as a director. But thank you all for watching this week. Again, really weird week. I wish I could have got to you guys on Monday, but I'm happy I was finally able to talk with these movies with you guys. Next week we are going to be reviewing Fly Me to the Moon and hopefully Longlegs, if I can go see it, either that or Despicable Me 4. I know that was obviously a big movie that came out this weekend, so I want to go and check that out. But yeah, exciting stuff still in the heat of summer. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the video store. It helps grow our channel immensely. Thank you all for watching, and as always, watch more movies.
And the award for most vapid film review of the century goes to...
Okay, movie review. Okay, I thought it was beauty.
And he's now in cinema hell, where one day we'll all be reunited.
This is me at the Regal Cinema crying as I did through much of the film.